Hello and welcome to Paul on Politics. Now, it's only been a fortnight since Theresa May triggered Article 50 and it's already become clear the EU exit route will be filled with rather a lot of political potholes. And even by today's standards of political unpredictability, few could have forecast that the early stages of the process would have been dominated by the fate of Gibraltar. Even fewer would have anticipated a rash of newspaper headlines suggesting war with Spain could be imminent, thanks to some comments by the former Kent MP and Conservative leader Lord Michael Howard. One issue that does need to be resolved is the status of EU nationals living and working in the UK. On the red sofa to discuss this and other Brexit issues are the Ashford MP Damian Green, the Minister for Work and Pensions, and Rob Bailey, a former journalist and lecturer in reporting at the Centre for Journalism. Thanks to both of them for coming in. We'll also be getting the crystal ball out to take a look at the prospects for the parties in the battle for control of Kent County Council. But first, Louisa Britton meets a couple who fear that Brexit might mean they'll be forced to leave the UK after 17 years.
Hans and Dimitri are from Belgium. They live in Gravesend and have been living in the UK for more than 15 years. But since the vote to leave the European Union, they say they feel uncertain about their future and what's going to happen next.
We've been in this country for a very long time. You know, all our adult life we've worked here.
17 years.
17 years, yeah. So we pay our taxes just like anyone else, and we're full taxpayers. We don't have any discounts whatsoever. So, you know, it comes across as, you know, being a bit ousted, really. I think Gravesend, quite a lot of people voted to be out. It felt like all my neighbours didn't want me here anymore. That uncertainty, you know, not knowing what they're going to do, you know, is tricky, because you'd expect them to do something about people like us.
Dimitri works in asset management in the city, while Hans works as a mental health nurse.
Why are the English people doing this to us? You know, we've come here for a job. We're doing a good job. So why are they choosing to vote against us? On averagely speaking, we have quite a wide range of nationalities working within the NHS. So why they're voting against us?
I think for me now, really, it's like, you know, what are they going to do about residency and us being able to stay here, or give us comfort that we can stay here? I think that's key at the moment, and it feels, you know, I'm quite annoyed that they on purpose have left that bit out, you know, to kind of like use it as a bargaining chip, I guess, you know, and I don't expect anything in the next 6 months to a year to be done about it.
We've been here for 17 years, we've paid our taxes, we've worked damn hard. Why? Why do we have to endure this?
Whether they decide to go back to Belgium or stay in the UK is difficult for them to decide, but for now all they feel they can do is play the waiting game, not sure which move to make next. Louisa Britton, KMTV.
Damian Green, why doesn't Theresa May make a decision now about EU nationals living and working in the UK? Why does she have to wait?
Well, of course, I mean, the first point to make about Hans and Dimitri is that they've been here for 17 years, so they have the right to apply for indefinite leave to remain anyway, so they need to have no worries at all.
They illustrate a wider point.
They do, and the wider point is that the British government has precisely made that offer to the other EU countries. There are something like 3 million European Union nationals living here. There are 1.5 million British citizens living overseas, and obviously we have a responsibility to them as well. So we have said, can we simply say that all those who are already in that position can keep their existing rights? The other European countries said, no, we're not doing that deal yet. You have to wait till you've triggered Article 50. We now have triggered Article 50, so we've said, okay, fine, can we do this first? Can we sort this out now to remove that type of uncertainty? And I hope they'll accept that.
So the chief negotiator, the commissioner, has said you've got to negotiate the terms of the disagreement. You can't just, as a complete package, as it were, rather than just picking out individual areas.
Well, but he can go away and consider that, because no doubt there are millions of citizens in the same position as that couple who want it sorted as soon as possible, and it's in everyone's interest to do so. It's in the interest of all the other countries, the citizens of all those countries, as well as in our interest. So this is something I think the British government wants us to crack on with.
Rob Bailey, are you experiencing some kind of apprehension amongst would-be students thinking of coming to the UK to study because of this particular issue?
Well, certainly in the early days after the Brexit vote, and when we started to expect student applications to be coming in for the next academic year, there was an amount of caution. There was very much a slowdown in the expected rate of applications. It has improved, and that's partly because the government moved very quickly to say that over the next 2 academic years, students coming in will fit under the same agreements for funding and everything else that they've had previously. But looking forward, after 2019 effectively, we still don't know what's happening. Students certainly are more cautious, and they are, and we are worried about the effect that will have when students are being asked to apply for university places without possibly clarity about how their places will be funded or their right to stay and build a career here at the end of it.
And it's not just students, but presumably academic staff who may be from EU countries working here too.
Absolutely. I mean, they'll be affected by in the same way, but also in other ways. So what makes Britain attractive at the moment for academic staff is the ability to work collaboratively in Europe. It's the access to research grants. It's all of the things that we do, particularly at Kent, the European University. And all of these things, all these unsettling questions need to be resolved very quickly for us, yes.
Well, in a few weeks, voters will be heading to the polls to decide who will run Kent County Council for the next 4 years. Last time, UKIP proved a surprise package coming from nowhere to take 17 seats, but the political landscape has changed dramatically since then. So what are the prospects for the parties on May the 4th? Boglarka Kostolani reports.
Kent County Council elections are only a month away, and nearly 400 candidates will be contesting people's votes. While Brexit talks play out in Westminster, how will this impact ballot boxes in Kent? At the moment, the Conservatives hold 43 seats, with UKIP being their biggest opponent. Labour is third with 13 seats, while the Lib Dems have 7 councillors, but they expect it to increase their numbers as some voters grow tired of pro-Brexit and anti-European rhetoric. So can Labour overcome the difficulties the party faces and increase their numbers enough to become a strong opposition?
We do have a party name, we are politicians, we are attached to a party, but what have we done locally and what have we done on the ground to make Kent a better place? And I think here at Kent County Council, we were not the official opposition party, but by many, and many of the administration felt that we were the opposition party.
As for UKIP, many thought that after Brexit they would achieve success in local elections as well, but it seems like the party is losing their touch after the departure of Nigel Farage.
Securing Brexit was stage one. We've got out of what I would consider the unhealthy, undemocratic state of the EU, but we've got serious democratic problems with Westminster, with local councils, and I think this is our next job. We've got to clean up local politics, we've got to clean up national politics.
Party leaders have put together their manifestos, and now the decision is up to the people. We asked Canterbury residents about how they are going to vote and what issues they want their future councillors to tackle.
Canterbury is quite a conservative area, and so a lot of people vote for Conservatives. I tend to vote for Labour, really to get something different done, but nothing much seems to happen.
I'd like a particular emphasis put on to making the surrounding area, Whitstable, Herne Bay, and the roads free of litter.
So the roads, schools, that kind of thing. Oh, and the hospital as well. I know it's not the council's problem, but yeah, making sure the hospital stays is important.
We haven't got the infrastructure to cope with the excess of homes that are being built. So I'm hoping that the council might think further on that point.
Boglarka Kostolani, KMTV.
Well, Damian Green, this ought to be a walk in the park for the Conservatives, oughtn't it? Labour's split down the middle over its leadership, UKIP imploding. You hardly need to go and stuff a leaflet through a door.
No election is ever a walk in the park, though clearly the Labour Party is in a state where I feel like I don't want to intrude into private grief. And UKIP, I think, are the interesting ones because what's the point now? I mean, they've won what UKIP voters wanted, and particularly in local government, I've genuinely never seen the point of voting for what in the end is a single issue party in local government. They haven't had much to offer there. So I would guess, trying to sort of step back from being an active politician in this and becoming an analyst for 30 seconds, I would guess UKIP is the most vulnerable party in these elections.
Rob, UKIP reached a high watermark back in 2013 and have been going down ever since in lots of ways. I mean, Damian makes the point that really what's the point of UKIP?
Yes, and I think Kent has been really the experiment. It's been the laboratory for a UKIP political project locally, hasn't it? We had the first district council run by UKIP.
And still have.
But the main legacy of that was the broken promises over Manston, which is continuing to be a long-running issue there. I don't think they have really made the case that they can be a credible local party. They haven't brought out a manifesto really yet for this year.
Well, they say that because they're an unwhipped party and they can say what they like, as it were.
And it's been an interesting experiment within Kent County Council for exactly that reason, because as an opposition they don't provide a credible single voice, maybe on the Westminster model of being an opposition which doesn't offer a single cohesive voice. But they often vote with the Conservatives on key issues, and I think you're right. Their main electoral challenge is really, why are they relevant?
Damian Green, local council elections are often seen as a kind of barometer or referendum on national government, but what's been interesting has been there's a lot more focus this year on issues like adult care, council tax. Do you think that's healthy?
I do. I think in the end local elections ought to be about local issues, and as you say, normally the situation is that any government in mid-term tends to go through dips in popularity, and also people just want to kick the government of the day. We're in a peculiar position at the moment where the government of the day, I'm happy to report as a member of it, is considerably more popular than the main opposition party, and there's still quite a lot of post-referendum turmoil as well. But I do think this gives people a chance to vote on local issues, and as you say, the delivery of local services is, people recognise how important it is now with the social care issue and so on.
Well, they recognise how important it is because the government's been shortchanging councils for such a long time, don't they? That's the reason people recognise it.
On social care, we've given, not just given more money through the Better Care Fund, but also allowed councils to increase their precept by a couple of % specifically to pay for social care, and Kent has very sensibly taken advantage of that.
It was you didn't even mention adult social care. Philip Hammond didn't mention adult social care in his budget, did he?
But the Better Care Fund was introduced after the 2015 election, so there is money
play until 2018, 2019.
Well, it's been brought forward. Some of the money that's available has been brought forward precisely because there are pressures there. I mean, because we've got an ageing population, we're inevitably going to get increased money that needs to be spent on social care, and how efficiently it's spent, and also, I think, really important in the long run, how carefully councils and the local NHS work together is very, very important. And I've seen, because I've been at the meetings, Paul Carter, the leader of the Kent Conservatives on the County Council, playing a very significant role in setting forward the overall strategic plan for the NHS and social care in Kent. It's a very, very big role.
Rob, although UKIP seems to be imploding, it's interesting that actually now when you look at particularly these elections going forward, there's a broad spread of candidates from different parties. For example, the Green Party are putting up around about 50-odd, 60-odd council candidates, which you might not have seen in previous elections. Again, that must be healthy for democracy.
Absolutely, it must. So I think, coming back to your issue a little bit, I think this election is overshadowed by the question of local government finance, about the money that is available for public services. And I think what you're seeing is a Green Party which is coming forward with lots of ideas about how it could save public services, bring more services under the wing of Kent County Council without any strong idea of how to fund it. Labour are doing the same, talking about increasing the number of cycle routes in Kent, talking about bus services becoming under public ownership.
And there's 15 independent candidates, which, the rise of independents is, although they don't often secure seats on council, it's the fact that there are so many independents, apolitical independents, is another interesting dimension.
Absolutely. Of course, one of the big problems with all of this choice is how many people are actually going to turn up to make those choices. And we're talking about this election as the first big test of public opinion since the EU referendum. The Liberal Democrats certainly are pinning a lot of their hopes on the idea that Remainers who are dissatisfied over the last 12 months might well move from blue to yellow or blue to orange.
That's an interesting point, Damian, isn't it? Because the Liberal Democrats might be the surprise package this time around, and they might be the surprise package because they're taking votes from you.
Well, so far, I mean, they've I think they're going back to their traditional role of being a protest party, because they've taken odd seats from the Conservatives in council by-elections and seats from Labour as well, even in some heavily Leave areas like Sunderland. So I mean, what seems to be happening is not so much a sort of Brexit protest vote, but just a general, well, they've forgotten that the Lib Dems were in government for 5 years. But I think it does give rise to
the party's popularity rests on people forgetting that they've been.
Well, so it would appear, to be perfectly honest. But what's interesting then is whether people are going to treat these elections as a serious election about local services or not.
I mean, there's always the issue of turnout in local elections, which is pretty much flatlined around 33% for as long as I can remember. And is there any way of pushing that up? What can politicians do more?
I mean, politicians try as hard as possible. We do, flog ourselves around the streets and knock on doors and deliver leaflets and more social media and things like that. I think the root of it is for people to recognise how important the local services are, and therefore how important it is to have both a competent administration at County Hall and one that will keep their council tax.
I suppose the dilemma is if services are being provided effectively and efficiently and at reasonable costs to the taxpayer, that they're not inclined to go out and put a cross against somebody in the ballot box. They might.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've always, it has struck me as a conundrum. It may be that because I think there's no doubt that people feel more engaged politically because of the referendum campaign and the referendum, where the vote was higher. That was 72%. It was 66% at the general election the year before. So maybe there's more interest in politics than there was.
Well, I think there's alongside, obviously, the policy areas which might engage the public, there is a general problem with information. The Conservative manifesto was launched this week for local government elections, but actually isn't that easy to find. If you go on Google, I had to find it via Sevenoaks Conservatives blog last night. The Labour manifesto is there, but the Liberal Democrats isn't, the Greens isn't. Very easy to find at this moment in time. We're a month away from the election.
Though, isn't it? I mean, you'd have thought they would use all the various different platforms to promote their manifesto.
Absolutely right. And if you go onto Kent County Council's website, obviously the central area for information about the elections, there is a promise on a page there that the election candidates will be listed on Wednesday, April the 5th. But I couldn't find actually those candidates in a particularly easy to find format anywhere there. And I think part of the problem is that if voters do want to be engaged, they go searching for information, they don't necessarily find what they need. And that's been a problem at the Police and Crime Commissioner elections as well.
What about the current setup of local government in Kent and elsewhere? I mean, we've had this issue of 4 district councils contemplating merger, which appears to have stalled, if not abruptly ended. Is there a way of restructuring local councils which might engage the public more?
I have to say I'm cynical about that as a tool for public engagement. I think ultimately it may be cynical to say so, but I'm not sure that people are thoroughly engaged in the structure of government as it is. I think changes to it won't be something that they necessarily fully understand. I don't think people vote for organisations because of the way they're structured. I think in Medway there's been a bit of a benefit in terms of everything coming under one roof, and you can blame one set of councillors for pretty much everything. But I'm not sure that works.
Damian, the point here is that if you're inventing from scratch a system of local government for Kent or in England, you probably wouldn't come up with a 2-tier system, would you?
You maybe wouldn't, but I mean, Medway is an interesting example. That I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not conscious that because Medway is a unitary authority, where, as you say, you've just got one set of local politicians you can praise or blame. Turnout at elections in Medway for a local office is no different from elections in either for Kent County Council or for any of the borough councils around. So I agree with Rob. I don't think the structure makes any difference. It's whether people think this is going to make a difference to my daily life or not.
Now we've spoken about UKIP, and of course the big story in the last couple of days has been the redefection, if you like, of Mark Reckless to kind of some quasi-conservative status, not quite in the party, not quite out of the party. Would you welcome him back as a full member of the Conservative Party?
Well, I think Mark has has burnt a lot of boats the way he defected last time. But on the whole, my mother always taught me when I was growing up that if you haven't got anything nice to say about anyone, you shouldn't say anything at all. So I'll take this opportunity to say nothing at all about Mark Reckless.
What about your colleagues in Wales, the Welsh Conservative group? I mean, do you think they've acted wisely in this?
Well, I'm not going to second guess the Welsh Conservatives as to how they want to operate inside the Welsh Assembly. But I do know that there are a lot of strong feelings about Mark Reckless among Conservatives in Kent, all of which I share.
Very diplomatically put. Okay, well, that's all we've got time for on this week's show, so that's thanks to our guests for coming into the studio. Remember that if you're eligible to vote, you have until the 13th of April to register for the Kent County Council election. In the meantime, you can catch up on all the latest political news and campaign coverage in Kent by logging on to kentonline.co.uk or listening to KMFM. That's it for now. See you next time.